Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching this out there on the World Wide Web. This is Jeremy Geelan for SYS-CON TV. We are here at 11th Cloud Expo. We have with us Intel's Steve Orrin.
Good afternoon.
Which means, I suspect, Steve, we're talking cloud security, but maybe, if I may, just before we do that, Intel and cloud, that's not the first combination of company and technology that everyone might think of.
Well, when you look at it from a provider perspective, most providers know that Intel is supplying the core infrastructure, technologies, and systems to support their cloud infrastructures. Tenants are starting to learn about the value and the capabilities that Intel servers and Intel technologies can bring to not only security but performance when it comes to cloud computing.
So this is like from Intel inside to Intel above, maybe?
Absolutely. Full solution stacks, enabling the ecosystem in order to be able to deploy the kind of usages that you want in a cloud environment from IaaS all the way up through SaaS.
And you are, wearing your security hat, and you've got a tough row to hoe, no?
Absolutely. Although there's some interesting innovations that have been going over the past several years that are helping clouds become more trustworthy. We've seen regulations trying to drive the overall industry, and technologies and the ecosystem and the ISVs working together to be able to provide trustworthy cloud computing. And Intel's been a supporter of this, providing some of the core infrastructure for things like hardware roots of trust and crypto acceleration, and then working with the various virtualization and cloud providers to be able to enable their systems to deploy those solutions out to their tenants and to other cloud environments.
Now, is a layman, the layman in me, am I allowed to say that when a whole industry unites on solving a problem, in this case security in the cloud, oughtn't it to be more or less have been sorted by now?
Well, it's a unique challenge because the cloud is an ever-changing thing, and it means multiple things to multiple people. When you're deploying a workload in a typical infrastructure as a service kind of environment, there's a certain set of controls and requirements, and even within the different regulatory bodies, there are different types of controls you want to put in place. What the industry has done, along with government bodies like NIST and with industry associations like CSA, are come up with common standards for how we express those controls and how we monitor those controls. But the adoption rate has to come from both the provider and the tenant to take advantage of what's available and to push the industry forward to adopt things for new usages, whether it be around data protection and data migration, or even some of the new usage with client-to-cloud and personal cloud style usages. So as the usages continue to change and the new technologies and innovations that we see on the cloud, we have to keep security lockstep. So it's a constantly changing world.
And you never wake up as a professional in the morning and just want to, just throw in the towel and say this is going to go on way beyond my lifetime.
Well, you have to look at it from the other side of the coin. It's constantly a good challenge. Every day you can wake up and you say, well, there's something new I have to solve, or some new problem that we have to go figure out. How do we get it to be deployable and scalable? So we may solve it for a small environment, but the challenge is managing that security, deploying it to a large scale. And so there's constant challenges that keeps you invigorated, and lots of innovations happen to keep us all excited.
That's good. That's a refreshing perspective. What would you most like to say to people then who are thinking of Intel's input into security?
Intel provides some of the core capabilities and infrastructure that is supporting the advanced cloud usages and security in the cloud, and whether it be around performance improvements for crypto acceleration or rooting trust into the hardware and then expressing that through attestation services up into the cloud infrastructure. Intel is a foundational piece that's helping to drive the overall ecosystem.
Do you think, Steve, that, it's early days now at this show, but shows in general or conversations in general, do you think the bar is now a lot higher than it used to be in cloud computing for issues exactly like this? Are people more literate, more aware, more up on the whole dimension of security?
I think in the past couple of years we've seen some major changes that have helped, whether it be things like the publication of the PCI standard with the supplemental for cloud and virtualization, FedRAMP finally getting published. We've seen some innovations around sort of the standards side of it, as well as in the past year, many of the large security vendors, virtualization infrastructure vendors, cloud management vendors are making security part of the differentiation. So we're seeing that they've stepped up to the plate, and there's a lot of work to be done, but we've actually seen some major push into making security as important to cloud as capacity and planning.
And without putting words in your mouth, but I'm sure you're asked this 10 million times, is it possible to put forward the view that the cloud will end up being safer than any data center has ever been?
I think that you can definitely posit that the cloud will be as secure as the data center is, and going
too far to say more secure.
In certain environments, depending on the kind of applications, especially when you start to take advantage of all the efficiencies the cloud can, it can make it easier to deploy those security things than you would in your data center. And the goal at the end of the day is to have good enough security to meet the needs of the risk tolerance of your application or your regulatory controls. So ultimately the goal is to get the cloud good enough to support the kind of applications you want to push in. Not every application has to move to the cloud, but every application that should move to the cloud should be able to do so in a secure and compliant fashion.
Now, my interest is piqued. I'm sure gazillions of SYS-CON TV viewers' interest is piqued. Where should we go then to follow up on this in an Intel perspective?
So there's two places you can go from an Intel perspective. You can go to intel.com/security, and it has a lot of information about Intel security capabilities in our platforms, as well as intel.com/cloud builders, which is a special section where we've actually taken some of these architectures, ISV products, OEM products, put them together in our labs and actually built the infrastructure, deployed and demonstrated the usage, and then documented it and put up that information for anyone to take a look at. So both of those sites would be good starting points. I'd also highly recommend looking at odca.org. The Open Data Center Alliance is really working with the larger cloud providers, small to medium business, and larger organizations who want to become tenants of the cloud to define a set of requirements, usages, and controls that then can help influence how the cloud providers deploy security.
Has some great resources. I recommend that site too. Thank you so much, Steve Orrin from Intel, for speaking with us here on SYS-CON TV, and thank you for watching out there on the World Wide Web.